And we are joined to talk about that, we are joined by Shekhar, Iyer, senior journalist. Shekhar, good to have you on the show. A long podcast, 3 hours, 17 minutes. Did you hear it fully?
I did, Abratpal, I did.
Okay, so what are your first impressions of the podcast, what he had to say on various subjects? You know, fasting, his childhood, Godhra, post-Godhra riots, something which he's, often accused of not talking about enough. He touched about that, he talked about criticism, how he takes criticism. He talked about AI, Pakistan, China, Donald Trump. Your first impressions?
Well, Abratpal, since this was a podcast, it was a completely a different approach. One could see that there were a lot of personal elements, and there was also about the worldly matters, worldly affairs, the challenge of the artificial intelligence, and also there was a dimension which I think the Prime Minister has not spoken before. That is his own spiritual journey, what inspired him. And the most interesting part was when Lex Fridman recited Gayatri Mantra and wanted to check with the Prime Minister whether he had pronounced the mantra correctly. And the Prime Minister explained the significance of mantra, which the rishis of this land have, bequeathed. And he explained that how the power of concentration, how meditation helps in the power of concentration. Now, these are aspects which the Prime Minister has never dealt before. Yes, it started with fasting, because Lex said that he himself underwent fast for this interview to understand what is fasting and how does one abstain from food, and how did the Prime Minister manage to do it for long periods, say during 2 Navaratris. Also, the Prime Minister mentioned about the Chaturmas, a period which starts with the, somewhere from mid-July, when the saints and mystics don't leave their place because it's a monsoon season and they believe their movement would cause loss of life. In terms of, they don't want to even step on a worm. So, and the Prime Minister said during that period, he has only 1 meal a day. We all know that during Navaratri, starting with say, from the first day of Navaratri and up to say Navami, Mahanavami, he completely doesn't take anything. But today the aspects came out like he has only 1 meal a day during this Chaturmas, which is almost 3.5-4 months. And the Prime Minister said it's a way of cleansing the body, getting rid of toxicity. And already the Prime Minister has given a call for all Indians, each one of us, to take the battle of the bulge, obesity, as a serious, health challenger. So if you look at it, this is a very wholesome interview. There are very stated positions.
On the Shekhar, on the fasting bit, it is well known that the Prime Minister fasts during Navratri. That is something which was not new for, the people of this country. But what I found particularly touching is the way Lex brought it out, with the way he personalized it. He said that I've been fasting for 45 hours just to prepare so that I can come to that level. So he says, okay, there is a way you go about it. I, begin by having water. And then he talks about the whole personal experience and why fasting.
You see, fasting, nowadays, if you open the YouTube, there are loads of reels about intermittent fasting, alternative day fasting, and a lot of stuff. But here the fasting as a practice in India as a tradition, which is to do with certain tithis, with certain festivals, with certain observances. And it's a complete new way of life where food is seen as a nourisher. And when it says nourish, it is not just about the body, it's about the mind. And in a way contributes to nourishment of the soul. And that is a concept that the Prime Minister conveyed to Lex today. Look, we don't look at it as simply a kind of a physical fitness routine, just as our yoga or yoga. Because there is complete difference between what Westerners consider what yoga is and what a rigorous physical training is. physical fitness is. So our approach is different. So Prime Minister conveyed, look, we are fortunate that we have a tradition when it comes to looking after in a holistic manner in terms of fitness, in terms of how we nourish our body, how we renew our body, and how fasting helps in
Okay.
renewal. Basically, every cell in your
True.
body renews.
Okay. So then he begins with childhood. He says, well, we all know the Prime Minister comes from humble backgrounds. His childhood wasn't. But he said, I used to wear canvas shoes to school, but I never felt poor because I didn't know better. I did not have fine shoes. So I wore those shoes and I was happy about it. Or when he talks about how, he learned counting and how different cereals were counted, and he said that's how he imbibed that. Or when he went and wrote he was fascinated by the way sun rose, and then he goes last, and then he starts writing and he says how it builds up my creativity. It's not just about the man Narendra Modi, but it's a message that he's saying that that's the way to learn, that's the way to grow, that's what childhood is all about. Normal, happy, where you don't care about whether I have this car, I've achieved this, I have not achieved this or not.
Amritpal, the Prime Minister says, poverty, the way we look at poverty and the way he looked at, his family's deprivations and lack of economic wherewithal for many comforts, as not something that was discouraging. That was because that was not something he felt he was in deep misery about it. No. Their economic situation, like many other Indians in this country, to him was a learning process to understand the basic necessities of life and how an average Indian copes up. And that was a great learning tool for him, because he said, look, we were not unhappy on account of, we didn't have, because our needs were few. And the way we looked at life, and that gradually helped him understand different facets of life, the struggle for human existence, the struggle for human betterment, and which he says was deeply ingrained in him as he moved on from that period to his wanderings in the Himalayas, meeting many religious leaders, saints, and spiritual masters from whom he got a lot of inspiration to understand this country. And he says the biggest lesson he learned in this journey from his family condition, other thing was, it is not about you becoming something. It's about you doing something for others. This life is not about, trying to fulfill yourself. See, this remarks completely flies away from what the opposition has always tried to show, that as a Prime Minister is somebody deeply driven by ambition. Prime Minister, somebody is full of, maverick ideas. And he also repeatedly said, look, if a question was put, why do you win elections repeatedly? He said, our approach is not election-centric, as many of his critics think. It's governance-centric. We are here to perform. We are here to do something, because that is a mission which is driving us, and that is a mission that people want us to do. This is completely way different from way other political parties and other political leaders have approached. It's about their becoming Prime Minister, they're becoming ministers, they're becoming MPs. No. Those positions are meant to serve people better, are seen to be seen as opportunity. This is something, his core approach to public service, his core approach to governance issues came out in this interview, Amritpal.
Okay. My producer tells me I'm completely out of time, but I can't let go of you without asking you about what he had to say on Pakistan. It's it was reiteration of India's stand that they export terror, they are always at odds with us, it's not about ideology. But on a day or in a week where Pakistan is hit by multiple attacks, how would the Pakistanis take it?
Well, he says, look, he recalled how he began his first term in office by inviting the leaders of the neighboring countries and including Pakistan Prime Minister. His belief was this was a great opportunity to make a new beginning. If at all there can be an enduring peace between India and Pakistan, it can happen only under a BJP regime. Because when it comes to looking at issues in great clarity. The BJP has it, and BJP has a leadership that has it. So the Prime Minister says, look, this was a great opportunity wasted. Even as we were trying to improve ties, they got back to more cross-border terrorism, and then because of the deep state in Pakistan, which did not want peace, a good opportunity was lost. So he says, look at the state. And then he pointed out, look at the condition of Pakistan today. It is globally seen as the epicenter of terrorism. Any terrorist act anywhere in the world, there are some links to Pakistan. And Pakistan is today viewed with suspicion. Its government, its people, its leaders are seen. I mean, this is the kind of situation which is a making of Pakistani leadership, the Pakistan military leadership, political leadership, which he says is unfortunate for the neighborhood and also for Pakistan. So a way forward is Pakistan has to completely give up terrorism, and terrorism cannot be a state policy, and terrorism is going to get them nowhere. And today they are now looking, they are seeing they are not able to even manage what is happening within Pakistan. Amritpal.
True. Okay, Shekhar, Iyer, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us and putting the Prime Minister's podcast or interview into context. Thank you.